There's a lot of controversy around this vinyl tag now, isn't there? Which one am I going to do? I think I'll do the fake one.
Digital gramophone makes no sense.
What's up, guys? It's been a little while since I posted a video. Not that I post, with as much frequency as a lot of other members of the VC, but yeah, it's just the end of the year was really busy. The holidays and everything, and kind of stayed busy coming into 2020. A lot of jam-packed weekends coming up. My sister's coming into town from Portland, and both the kids. Sam's birthday is in a couple of weeks, and then Inez's is a week after. So we've got birthday parties and stuff. So weekends are jam-packed. This past weekend, I had a free weekend, and Dave, local bandography Dave, you guys know Dave. Dave's always hitting me up. We met through the VC, and we've become pretty good buds, and we chat a lot via text and whatnot. And he's always sending me messages like, there's a record show in town, or did you see what Tip Top dropped the other day? And or Lunchbox just got this in. I'm going to be going by there if you want to meet up. And I always feel bad because I can't just get out at the drop of a hat anymore. Dad life and everything. But like I said, I had this free weekend, so I messaged Dave and I said, look, man, let's make it count. I had about somewhere between 30 and 40 records that I'd pulled from the collection. And I said I'll go trade those into Dylan. I'm trying to pare down my collection bit by bit, make decisions, making some of them tough, some of them easy. A lot of these records that I took Dylan, there weren't a ton of heavy hitters. It was just some, random new wave albums, like one-offs by bands that I don't consider essential to me. Some Hall & Oates albums, things like that. And I like Hall & Oates, but I've got the Greatest Hits Volume 1 and Rock and Roll Volume 1 or whatever it's called. That's good enough for me. Really, to be honest, I don't feel like I'm missing out on a lot of those deep cuts. Just stuff like that. Just records that I forgot that I even had around, things like that. And I just decided to take those in, and I'm going to continue to do that. I'd love to shrink my collection another 200-300 records if I could. Might not get there tomorrow. Definitely not going to get there tomorrow. I might not get there next week. It might even be 2 years from now, but it's going to happen. I'm just trying to be a little bit more focused on what it is that I want and what I consider essential.
Digging with Dave.
Yeah, anyway, so Dave and I decided to meet up at Noble Records. Dylan had bought a collection from a guy that lives here in town who's a graphic artist who done some, pretty famous album covers. Dylan did a video. I'm sure all of you guys that watch me saw that. So Dave and I wanted to get, first dibs on some of the stuff that was in that collection. There were a few records that I had in mind, a couple of the Dr. John, and then one in particular that I picked up. I wasn't able to get there in the morning. I just wasn't able to get out of the house. I had to stick around for a little bit longer than I originally planned, but I got over there around lunchtime, and there were still 2 copies of this, and I was really ecstatic to pick it up. Soft Machine, original uncensored version. Yeah, just really, really glad to pick this up. I'm not a huge prog guy, and I know that this, obviously the band would never really sound quite the same after this. Getting a little more heavier into the jazz sound for some of the albums that followed, but I'm not a huge prog guy, but there are some albums that I just consider essentials that I enjoy, that I want to have. Like Court of the Crimson King being one. This one is one of those, and I've price stalked it on Discogs and eBay for a long time now, and I've just never. I get notifications of them being posted for sale, and they're just never for a price that I wanted to spend. And Dylan had an affordable price. He had 2 copies, and I picked this one up, and I'm really, really excited. Especially to get it in on a trade. Yeah, so while I was there, picked up a few other things, just kind of looking around. Found this copy of Leonard Cohen's Death of a Ladies' Man. Leonard Cohen is another guy in the last, I'd say, 5 years or so that I've been a little more focused on picking up his albums. I mean, I've been aware of him for years. I mean, who isn't? And I've got a few of his albums. This is not one of his best. It's still pretty solid. It's produced by Phil Spector, but still some really solid songs on here. And because it's a promo copy, I decided to pick it up. This was sealed, but I've opened it up to give it a listen. This is volume 3 of Missing Links. This is the third of 3 volumes. I don't have 1 or 2, and I'd like to get those. But this came out in 1990, and this was just kind of like odds and ends, recordings, never released recordings. This is from his 60s period, so obviously Link Ray, those of you know, is more famous for his 50s output, and then in the late 50s, but then obviously his resurgence in the 70s. And the 60s was kind of like a unheralded period for him. But there's some really good stuff on this. There's just a lot of this was pulled from recordings that Vernon Ray just had kind of around. They compiled it all here. There's a really cool instrumental version of Please Please Me. This was right in those years where the Beatles broke, and kind of the British invasion. And so their sound, his sound kind of modified to those times. But yeah, it's worth having. I pick up anything that I find Link Ray because of the North Carolina connection. Picked up McCartney. I've never had this on vinyl. Had it on CD. I'm very selective in my Beatles solo albums. I think a lot of McCartney's stuff, Mazzy's gonna kill me. Some other folks might too, but I just think some of Paul's solo stuff is kind of overrated. But I really enjoy this album. Ram might even be my favorite solo album of his. I really like Flaming Pie. So jealous of a couple of you guys out there that have the vinyl copy of that. Jeff Kempen, Chris, Teams from the Man Cave. And then Ain't Love Grand by X from 1985. This was one of the couple left that I had to get from the 80s, from their 80s output. So excited to get that. After that, we went to Repo Records. Dave had messaged me earlier in the week that they had got a collection in that had a lot of 90s stuff, early 2000s stuff. And depending on the artist, that sometimes that stuff can be hard to come by. Some of it's really rare. They still had some pretty rare stuff up on the wall. There were a couple Outcast albums, Atlians, and Speakerbox Love Below. was there, way out of my price range. I think they were both like $100 a piece. I think that there was an OG of Gish still there, if I remember correctly. Like Turning Point by the Roots, which I love the Roots. Turning Point's not really one of my favorites of theirs, but that would be kind of cool to have on vinyl, but just, again, too pricey. But they had some more affordable stuff over in the new just in used section. A couple that I passed on because I have represses and I'm just happy with those, and I'm not two albums that I consider some of my all-time faves, one being White Blood Cells, but when I looked into it, I was still like, man, I might buy that if it's early enough. I could probably flip that thing. But it was priced accordingly because it was a pretty common press from 2002 on V2 Records. I think it was like $25. So I passed on that. They also had an OG of The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, an absolute classic in my book. Love that album, but I'm happy with the repress. So I thought I would just pick some things up that I don't have instead. One of them being Murray Street by Sonic Youth. This is 2002. It's not that hard to come by affordably online, but you don't see this a lot in the wild. And, to be able to avoid the shipping and waiting and all of that stuff, and not knowing what condition it really might be in once it arrives. So this was cool to find. Sonic Youth is one of those bands that I really like. And the ones that I do have on vinyl are like represses of their earlier work. I have a couple of the others on CD. But yeah, was really stoked to pick this up. And then this one, again, another one that was priced right, and really because it's not too hard to come by online either, for the same price. But again, you don't ever really see it in the wild. Homework by Daft Punk. They had this labeled as a 1996 French press. But I know this album came out in 97, so I was like, I wonder what that's all about. And I looked it up, and not while I was there, but when I got home. And yeah, I mean, it's just a 97 European press. But still, Homework, Discovery, two incredible, the classics. Random Access Memories, which obviously came out a lot later, is another Stone Cold classic. Really glad to pick that up. Later on, we went to Lunchbox, and I had traded in. Some of you guys might have seen, that follow me on Instagram, might have seen that I had posted some videos of a lot of CDs that I was trading in. A lot of those CDs, the majority of them, I have since acquired on vinyl, or might have already had on vinyl and just wanted a CD copy. Guys, it's 2020, and I am completely okay with streaming music. I don't need the CD copy for the car anymore. I haven't needed that for years. And so a lot of these CDs I've just been sitting on, and they're not really doing me any good. Especially if I have them on vinyl. I'd rather have them on vinyl anyway. So I took a lot of them in to Lunchbox and got about $200 store credit for those. So yeah, when you're with Dave, here's the thing about Dave. It doesn't matter if he's the one spending the money, or if you're the one spending the money, or if it's a complete random stranger in the store spending the money. Dave just loves seeing people buy records. He just loves it. He gets as much enjoyment out of it if you're buying it than if he's buying it, it's really fun to be around. It's infectious, but it's also dangerous, and also quite comical. I'll tell you, while we were in there, he was going through the new arrivals in the used section, and he pulled out about 15 records and just threw them at me. You gotta have this. You gotta have this. You gotta have this. Because he's like, you got a $200 gift certificate. You're rolling with free money.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
But as you guys know, new records especially, and that's what I picked up there. You'll go through that 200 quick. So, and I'm trying to hold on to a little bit for some new releases that are coming out later. But yeah, so, and not only that, but I moved on around to the other side of a row of bins that we were looking through. And Dave's still there, and then some other random guy just walks up beside him, and Dave's like, "Hey man, you into electronic? Yeah, you got to get that that Clark album. It's on Warp. It was like $6. It was a great album, fantastic album. Then some kid probably wasn't any older than 12, maybe 13 years old. I think he was there with like his mom or something. And Dave's just throwing him like hip hop records because he saw he had a hip hop record in his hands. And then that woman was like, "Okay, we need to move away from this gentleman because he's gonna make me go broke before I get out of here." It's just hilarious. It's always a good time going out with Dave. Yes, he still managed to influence me quite a bit. Now, one of the things I had a goal in was, and it was like one of the first things I told him when I saw him when we met up, was I was like, okay, today I'm getting that Tonari Win album, and so I picked it up. Based on his recommendation, also Paul, Too Many 45s, gave it a recommendation. Now, Dave's recommendation was via Steve Carlson, even though I don't really remember Steve showing this album. I know he did. I just don't remember when, but still decided to pick it up. So good. I've spun it a couple times. I am on the Tonari Win train. I even did a little bit of internet research on them since picking this up, and saw that they around 2012 on an album of theirs, they had worked with Kip Malone and Tunde Adebimpe from TV on the Radio. And I was like, man, I wonder what that sounds like. So I was on YouTube and was trying to find something, there. And then a video popped up from when these guys with Kip and Tunde were on the Colbert Report, like in 2011. And as I was watching it, I was like, I remember I saw this episode when it came out. Didn't know what I was watching. And here we are 8-9 years later, picking this up. So that's just, it's funny how music works. I rarely do this anymore, but was watching Watchmen on HBO. Amazing series. So well done. And at the end of one of the episodes, there was a song that really caught my ear. And it played into the credits, and I looked it up, and it was a song called "Living in the Past" by Witch. And I remember when these came out, I remember reading reviews of these when they were being reissued. I don't remember how many years ago. I want to say somewhere around 2012, maybe. And I was like, that song is incredible. So I streamed some of the stuff online and went to Lunchbox a few weeks before this dig and picked up a couple of other things. I'm going to be doing another video, some finds that encompass kind of everything that I got towards the end of last year, going back into maybe even November a little bit. But they had Introduction. This is their first album. Really, really good stuff. This a wild blend of R&B and rock and kind of classic rock, psych rock, funk, just really, really good stuff here. And they didn't have In the Past, which had the song that inspired all of this for me to pick it up. But while I was there with Dave, I was like, I want to see if In the Past Is There Now wasn't there, so I'm probably just gonna order that one online. But they did have this Lucambo Vibes, by which this album, unlike those first couple, this was I think their first or their fourth album. Unlike those first couple of albums, this one really does fuse more African rhythms and African traditional African music, you know, or Afrobeat even into their sound, which didn't really exist as strongly on their first couple, but it really comes out here, and this is really good. A much more unique sound on this album, and really enjoy this one. Earlier in the day, before we went to Lunchbox, we were at lunch. This burger fry joint, South 21, which is a local establishment, and sitting over, you know, some cheeseburger, a couple cheeseburgers and French fries and onion rings, and as you do, talk about Fela Kuti. And I don't know how it came up, but I'm a big Fela fan. Anybody that's familiar with him is a big fan, should be. And I have several of his albums. And I don't remember what brought it up, but we were just talking about it. And then Dave said, well, what about, have you ever heard Ebo Taylor? And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, you got to check out Ebo Taylor. So while we were at Lunchbox, he brought it up again, and he was like, you know, let's see, I bet they got that record. And there was, and it's a 2010 reissue of Love and Death by Ebo Taylor. This is on Strut. I know I have at least one other Strut release, which is Orlando Julius and the Modern Aces, which I had on CD for years, and then I picked it up on vinyl last year. And that was a great pressing, and so I knew that this would be quality too, and man, this is really good. Look at that! Look at that! Look at that amp! That stack, man. You know it's gonna be good, right? Fantastic album. Definitely going to dig into some more of Ebo Taylor's earlier stuff. That one is really good. While we're talking about Dave, I was telling him while we were hanging out that, you know, I'd been meaning to tell him that I'd been looking into International Anthem Records, which he had talked about a few of those releases throughout the year last year. And his favorite album of 2019 came out as that Jamie Branch album, and a couple of you acted on that recommendation. The Angel Bat Dawid album that came out on International Anthem, I think that was Alex Motoric 247's like favorite release of 2019. I know it was up there for Dave too. And so when I was on their Bandcamp page, just kind of looking over some of the releases, sampling the albums that Dave had talked about, I saw this Damon Locke's Black Monument Ensemble, and I was telling Dave that when I thought it was great, and Dave wasn't as big on it. I think the vocals on this album were not really his thing. I like the vocals. He kind of said that they're kind of gospel-y, gospel-ish vocals. I don't know if they're that. It's not the Staple Singers or anything, but it's still really cool. I think beautiful vocals. Now this Damon Locks is an electronic artist who he was in that band with Fred Armisen. What was it called? Trenchmouth. And I just heard this and was blown away when I had sampled it online. It struck quite an emotional chord with me, and it's quite a socio-political statement at a time well timed, I will say. It was recorded live in 2018, and now this is something that, even though there's an electronic foundation, the vocals and there's live drums and percussion, and Angel Batdaweed plays clarinet on this as well, and it's just a great recording and a great document. This might not be something that I will ever put on repeat obsessive listening. I just had to own it just for the document of what it is art, true art, and it's fantastic. So I picked that up, and yeah, man, I mean, Dave has mentioned it. These guys do it right. It's such a great, a sturdy jacket. The pressing is top notch. This record comes with these kind of mini posters that I believe were all done by Damon Locks. Really, really cool stuff. I don't own a lot of albums like this. It's kind of experimental jazz. I mean, you know, I have some fusion stuff, but nothing quite like this. And it's so I feel like a little bit of a poser, but it's really good. I won't apologize for buying good music. And then, of course, last but not least, we're running long, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm rambling quite a bit. But this was a goal of mine this year was to pick up the Stereolab reissues that came out last year that I just didn't get at the time, you know, choices. And I have Emperor Tomato Ketchup and Dots and Loops on vinyl already, but they were pressed by a label called 1972. But the band was not happy with them, and I wish that I had seen that before I bought them. I don't think they said that until after the fact, till after they had been released. But I'd picked those up, and they were taken from CD, and you can tell, you can kind of hear the digitization in the mix. The drums sound real thin, and you know, it's just not very good quality. So I was excited to see when they started to reissue these. And I had picked up both of those albums along with this one, Mars Audiac Quintet, but I put the other two back because of some of the other records that I picked up here instead. And I'll get around to picking those up. But this is from 1994, originally released in 1994. Yeah, Stereolab's great. Sam Vinyl Douche has talked about all of these. As they were coming out, he was picking them up. And he's a much more knowledgeable expert on Stereolab than I am. Even though I enjoy their music, I've just never really delved into their biography as much. But this is solid stuff. I don't think you can go wrong with just about any of those albums that came out in the 90s. And Sam talked about this too. The big problem with this is the packaging. I really wish they had done that a little bit differently. I guess they tried to save money because it's a 3 LP set, but you know, and that, yeah, it's really difficult to work with, but still, as I try to take them out of the jacket, quality heavyweight vinyl, and these are on colorless, dye-free vinyl. Yeah, I'll be doing a vinyl tag here soon. Maybe today. I've got a little bit more time. Be good, you guys. Be good. Yeah.